Alright, we're here today at the Old Melbourne Gaol. This place isn't just stone and iron, it was where the law and rebellion clashed head on. For nearly a century, these walls held the poor, the desperate and the dangerous. Some walked out, others met the rope. I thought it would be interesting to take a walk through and see the cells, the gallows, and to uncover the history etched into every block of bluestone. This was the last stop for many, including one of Australia's most infamous outlaws, Ned Kelly, and in his words as he faced the end right here in 1880, such is life. In the heart of Melbourne, an imposing bluestone fortress rises above the streets, silent, stoic and heavy with stories. This is the Melbourne Gaol. For nearly a century it was a place of fear, confinement and death, a place where the law ruled absolutely and where some of Australia's most notorious figures met their fate. Among these walls walked petty thieves, desperate children, hardened murderers, and one man who would become a legend, Ned Kelly. Today these corridors are empty, but the echoes of the past are still here waiting. Construction of the Old Melbourne Gaol began in 1839, with the major building stages continuing through the 1840s, 50s and 60s. By 1845, the first cell block opened, a stark stone-built warning to the people of the growing colony. The streets of Melbourne were bustling with settlers, immigrants and those left behind by society. Crime was rising, and the authorities needed a place to enforce the law with absolute authority. The jail was built to intimidate as much as imprison. Thick blue stone walls, narrow slit windows, iron bars, solitary cells. Every aspect of the design spoke of control. The authorities wanted to send a clear message. This is where the law and order ends and defiance dies. By the 1850s, the gold rush brought thousands to Melbourne. The city exploded in population and with it, crime. The jail became overcrowded almost immediately. Reports from the 1853 describe cells literally crammed to suffocation, a place where desperation and fear were constant companions. Life inside was harsh. Prisoners were subjected to hard labour, minimal food, and solitary confinement. Even women and very young children were held here. Inmates included petty thieves, violent offenders, and the homeless, and even political prisoners. They lived side by side, their days defined by monotony, fear, and the sound of heavy iron doors closing behind them. Daily routines were unforgiving. Head counts at dawn, forced labour during the day, chapel in the evening, and cold, lonely night in a cell. It was a world stripped of freedom, a place designed to break both body and spirit. Among the jail's infamous inmates, none is more legendary than Ned Kelly. Born in 1854 to Irish immigrants, Kelly's life was shaped by poverty and harassment from authorities. His family endured violence, injustice, and systematic prejudice, experiences that would fuel his path toward outlawry. Kelly's crimes began with horse theft, escalating to bank robberies, violent confrontations with police. His most famous act, the Glenrowan Siege in 1880, ended in the capture for final weeks of his life. Kelly was held within these walls. Imagine the tension, the awareness of your days are numbered, walking the same corridors you once feared. On November 11, 1880, Kelly was executed by hanging. His death mask remains today, silent witness to the life of a man who defied authority and became a symbol of rebellion. Frederick Deeming, executed in 1892, was another of the jail's most chilling residents, suspected by some to be Jack the Ripper. Deeming's crimes included the murder of his wife and children. His story remains one of the most darkest chapters of the jail's history. The jail held hundreds more, thieves, debtors, and the desperate. It was a place where the social inequality, poverty, and colonial law intersected, often with tragic consequences. Between 1842 and 1929, the Old Melbourne Gaol witnessed 133 executions. Later executions were carried out within its walls, but crowds still gathered outside the notorious cases like Ned Kelly. Imagine the final walk, the tension in the air, the crowd holding its breath as the trapdoor opened. Each execution left a mark, not just on the family of the condemned, but on Melbourne itself. The jail operated as a prison until 1924 and was formally decommissioned in 1929. During World War II, its cells served as a military detention barracks for soldiers and some prisoners of war. In 1972, the National Trust of Australia reopened the jail as a museum, preserving its stories for future generations. Today, visitors can walk these corridors, explore the cells, and encounter the relics of the lives once confined here, from Ned Kelly's armour to the death mask. The solitary cells to the gallows, the Old Melbourne Gaol is a window into the past, brutal, haunting, and unforgettable. The Old Melbourne Gaol is more than a building. It is a testament to a society that struggled with crime, punishment and justice. It is a mirror of our past, the triumphs and the tragedies, the defiance and the despair. Walking these corridors, you feel the weight of history. You hear the whispers of those who lived here, the footsteps of the condemned, the echo of the chains and the silence that followed. And in the silence, the stories remain, waiting to be remembered. The Old Melbourne Gaol, a place of confinement, a place of legend, a place where history comes alive. How did a prison built in the 1840s survive the chaos of Melbourne's gold rush? And what was it really like for children and petty criminals living in the dark, cramped cells? When the gold rush hit Melbourne in 1851, the city's population exploded, crime rose with it, and the jail, whose first cell block opened in 1845, struggled to contain the influx, even women and yet very young children. Sometimes infants with their mothers were imprisoned here, often alongside hardened criminals. Petty thieves were squeezed into tiny cells with little food or warmth, the air thick with fear and despair. The walls of the Old Melbourne Gaol weren't just stone and mortar. They were a crucible of the suffering, shaping the lives of everyone forced to call the place home. Elizabeth Scott was just a teenager when she was sentenced to death. What does her story reveal about woman, power and the justice in colonial Victoria? Elizabeth Scott's story is tragic and haunting. Reported to have been coerced into marriage as a young teenager, she lived her life marked by hardship and manipulation. Convicted of murdering her husband, she became the first woman executed in Victoria. Hanged at the jail on November the 11th, 1863, the authorities did not see a victim, they saw a criminal. Her death was a grim reflection of the harsh and unforgiving justice system of the time. Walking through the jail today, one can feel the lingering echoes of her fear, her despair, and the societal inequalities that condemn her so young. Why did hundreds of citizens flock to watch executions in the Old Melbourne Gaol? And how did the grim spectacle shape Melbourne's attitudes towards crime and punishment? Early executions in the 1840s were conducted publicly outside the jail. Crowds gathered in their hundreds, driven by curiosity, fear and fascination. Later executions were carried out inside the prison walls, but even then, crowds waited outside for news. And in Ned Kelly's case, thousands stood in the streets for the authorities. Those events were a warning, a spectacle of law and order for the people. It was also a strange form of entertainment. A way to confront mortality and morality in a world before mass media. Each hanging etched the power of the state into minds of the citizens, reinforcing the harsh realities of colonial life and leaving indelible marks on Melbourne's collective consciousness. So that's the trapdoor that they would release, and I guess when they hung them, they fall through that. That's crazy. Absolutely crazy. So you can see all like the mechanism that just kind of releases the floor. That's pretty interesting actually. I only just noticed that.